How many people have actually seen the movie Rudy? Just raise your hand. Cool. You know it's not about football, right? 27 seconds, and then they carried me off the field, and they made a movie. So it can't be about football. It's more about what I wanted to be. We always want to be somebody. Am I right? Everybody wants to be somebody or be recognized. I used to cut class for a reason. Why did I cut class? The teacher tried to flunk me, so why do I want to go to that class? So I graduated third in my class from the bottom in high school. See, a lot of people said to me, Rudy, you can't make that movie. Rudy, you can't go to college. Rudy, you can't play football. Rudy, you can't do this and you can't do that. Well, you know, it's the power of your human spirit that brings everything out of you. It's your belief level. It's what you believe in. And I think that's why I'm here to say to you, if you're going to pick a speaker, you have to look at where they've been. What did they do? How can they give you a message of hope? How can they give you a feeling of I can do it if they haven't walked through the fire of life? See, the fire of life and the struggles is what's important. See, if you haven't struggled, you can't be that person you want to be. A lot of us, I don't know, we look at struggle, geez, that's a little too hard, so I'm not even going to try that. And you quit along the way. I guess what I'm saying, that's why I get excited about when they made the movie Rudy. It wasn't about me, it was about you. It was about everybody. It was about millions of people who had a dream, millions of people who wanted to be somebody, and they related to that. And I guess when I look at that, I look at everything I do in my life. I do it with a purpose. I do it for a follow-through goals. I got to follow through for each of my goals, and goals can be simple, goals can be, you know, big, whatever you want them to be. You got to create those success habits. And I think that's why I look at my story coming to you today saying to you, hey, I'm not a great speaker. Isn't that great? But you know, who cares? We're all trying to be great speakers. You know, we're trying to be something greater than what you think you are. I guess what I'm saying, be yourself. That's the main thing. Be yourself. You know, it's funny when I get to speak around the world and with big leaders of this country, and I'm on stages with the, like George and Barbara Bush, Christopher Reeves, and Colin Powell. I ask myself, what do I have in common with these guys? What do I have in common? Have you ever asked yourself that? What do you have in common? Well, there's really one thing I had in common with every one of them. When I saw George Bush, I knew I had something in common with him because he had a vice president that couldn't spell, and I couldn't spell. So we have that in common. You know, and when I saw the first Super Bowl guy that spoke right before me, he had 4 Super Bowl rings, and what I had in common with him was he didn't quit, neither did I, but the thing I had over him, I made my movie, they didn't make his movie yet. So it wasn't about how many tackles you made or how you know, it's about what you do, your accountability about who you are and your responsibility. That's what I'm about. And if you're going to bring me in to speak to people, you have to look at how can Rudy or how can any speaker inspire my people to move towards their goal or become a team, period, a team. You know, I understood team. I didn't want my teammates to like me. They had to respect me. And I learned that the hard way. I did not enjoy going to football practice. As you know, in the dreams, you don't feel the pain. You can't. In the dreams, you don't. In reality, you feel the pain. And then you start making different decisions. See, it's your decisions. And I'm going to end my little story with this guy who was another dreamer of mine. Oh, a mentor of mine. I know Edie, she mentioned mentors. There's many mentors we meet along the way. My mentor was a janitor. Can you believe that? A janitor who said, Rudy, don't quit. But he said a little more than that. You saw in the movie, he gave you a nice speech, but in reality, he didn't say that. So we have to use dramatic license to correct what he really said, but he meant the same thing. He cared. It's not how much he knew, it's how much he cared. So I guess that's why I moved on. I felt a little thread of hope that kept me going, and that's what's important for when you come in as a speaker. You got to give them hope. You got to give them that encouragement to move on. I don't know what you do. I have no idea what the people do. When I go speak in front of Penske Trucking or Merrill Lynch, I have no idea what they do, but I do know they know what they do or they wouldn't be there. I have to inspire them to do more. So that's what's interesting about what I do. I don't have to know anything about what you do other than I know you know what you do, so I got to give you the confidence that you can do it. Yes, you can. You can do anything you want. You can be anybody you want to be. My friend come up to me one day at Notre Dame, 1989, and he says to me, Rudy, what are you always hanging around here? I said, well, I graduated here in 1975, and I want to make this movie. He says, you know, he never he never actually looked at me like I had 8 heads when you tell someone your dream. Then I asked him, what's your dream? He says, I want to be a head coach someday. He just won the national championship. I said, you will be that head coach. And he said to me, you will make that movie. And Rudy, when your movie comes out, I want you to talk to my football team. I said, wow, that'd be awesome. So we had a purpose. So within 3-4 years, my movie got made, and within 5 years, he became a head coach. But his friends told him not to go to that school to be a head coach because he asked his loser friend his advice. So if you want to do anything in life, good, ask a loser friend and do the opposite. That's what he did. So he asked his friend, should I go to that school? He said, no, they're losers. They're 1 in 10. They never win football games. They got a losing program. But he went. He says, and he remembered this. He says, dreams are important. Dreams are what make life tolerable. So what he really had to do was this. Number one, he had to ask the team for their commitment on a dream. He said, how many of you guys want to go to the Rose Bowl? And every kid in that room raised his hand. There were seniors, juniors, sophomore, and freshmen. The seniors were graduating. Juniors, how can they go to the Rose Bowls? And the seniors said the same thing, but the sophomore and freshmen had hope. But what he had to do, he had to make a commitment to the team as a unit. This mission we're going to be on, he says, it's going to help you the rest of your life. A lot of kids didn't understand that, but he has said, how many kids you want to go to the Rose Bowl? And every one of those kids raised their hand, and that's awesome. Like, how many of you all want to be somebody, go somewhere, and you're all going to raise your hand? But then he put some rules and laws down. He says, you all got to go to class, you got to wake up every morning and get breakfast, and you got to do the training table, and then you got to go to football practice, you got to go to study hall, and they all committed to that. Within 30 days, 30 football players quit. And I said it's an amazing thing when you ask for commitment, isn't it? When you want to be somebody. And when you want to be somebody, there are commitments, there are struggles. And I guess what I'm saying, if you're not used to your success habits, you will quit along the way. That's why he asked right up front, what's your dream? And there are certain things you have to apply in order to get there. What's interesting about that football team, he called me up in 94, that's right, 93, right when the movie was coming out. He remembered me telling him I was going to make my movie. And I remembered him when he says I'm going to be a head coach, and I remembered when he called me, he says, Rudy, I want you to come to speak to my football team. I said, absolutely, I'll be there. And I said, am I worth it? After I hung up the phone. You ever do that? You know, I said, am I worth it? And I finally said to myself, you bet I'm worth it. I belong there with those kids. And when I walked into that arena of kids I never met before, I saw something in their eyes that were very interesting. And the same look you have. Some of you said, who is that guy? You know, some of you said, I saw him, I know him. So they didn't know who I was, but then after we got him in the bus, went to see the movie Rudy, they all changed their attitude. Because I walked in front of the kids, and I'll never forget this, when I walked in front of the kids, and this guy, he stood up and he looked right at me. He says, I'll put my life on the line for all of you. I'm going to go to the Rose Bowl. And then I said to myself, wow, that's pretty profound, because when you make a profound statement like that and a commitment to that, then Coach had me come up and speak to the kids, and I didn't know what to say other than let's go get them. So I guess what I'm saying, what am I going to say to something of that profound? I'm not going to tell you anything. You know, they did go to the Rose Bowl that year, and they did see the movie Rudy, and my friend did fulfill his dream about becoming a head coach. He became one of the winningest coach at that university. And I guess it all starts from a dream when he was a police officer running the beat. You know, when you were doing the beat, he was dreaming. I don't know if you ever did that before. That's how I started out. So it all comes from a decision. Everything comes from a decision. It's called a success decision. And, you know, I'll challenge you to that. I really do. So if you're going to make a decision on any speaker, think about where that speaker's been. Think about what he can contribute. And also think about how he can move the people from inside, not the outside. And I'm going to end it like this. Set your people up for success, no matter what you do. I'll never forget my first speech. They didn't set my speaking audience up for success, but they were excited. They really were. They just saw the movie Rudy, and there they were. They were excited to meet Rudy, but they didn't tell them the real Rudy was coming. But those 4th and 5th graders were excited. When I walked out, they looked, and they looked, and they looked. And one little girl finally said, "Where's Rudy?" I had to stand and say, "I'm Rudy." And the other little girl says, "No, you're a fake." It's perception, is it not?